the participants. We are broadcasting.
Okay, and I see the attendees coming in slowly. Welcome. I'll let people filter in here. Okay, welcome everybody. This is the, whatever the date is today. Oh, it's St. Patrick's Day. This is March 17th, EBCE meeting. Wait, I'm wearing green. Okay.
How quickly we forget, how quickly we forget.
All right, there we go. All right, welcome all. Okay, Mr. Clerk, first of all, thank you all for being here today. Hope everybody is doing well, staying safe. I know you're all working hard. And thank you to the members of the public and our allies and folks in the attendees queue who are also here to listen and share information. And Mr. Clerk, why don't we call the roll?
Yes, Alameda County.
Present.
Albany.
Present.
Berkeley.
Here.
Dublin.
Here.
Fremont. Fremont. Hayward.
Present.
Livermore.
Here.
Newark.
Here.
Piedmont. Piedmont. Pleasanton.
Present.
San Leandro.
Present.
Tracy.
Present.
Union City.
Present.
Community Advisory Committee.
Present.
Emeryville.
Present.
Oakland.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Clerk, and thank you all for being here today. And we'll go now first to public comment. This is generally items that are not specifically on our agenda tonight, but items of interest to EBCE and clean energy matters. So, Mr. Clerk, why don't we let us know who is in the queue for public comment. If those people who are here want to raise their hand, they could do so. I think by now everybody knows how to raise their hand on Zoom, and we'll hear folks. We're ready.
Yes, we have one speaker, Jessica Tovar. Jessica Tovar, I am unmuting you now.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Jessica Tovar, Bay Clean Power Alliance, and I just want to thank the staff for presenting on the local, specifically the local development team who hosted the retreat last Friday to bring board members up to speed on the local development business plan programs and projects being launched in our community. I think that's very important. I spoke a little bit to the history of that the advocacy for this community choice program was envisioned with local development at the center, at the heart of the program. It is what makes this program unique and innovative. You're the first community choice program to make that commitment on the onset. And that came through advocacy of a labor and environmental justice community within Alameda County. Great to also include City of Tracy. I wanted to also just put out there, I know that the Community Advisory Committee has yet to have new members appointed, and I just want to highlight that. Curious what the time frame is for that, because I would like the same courtesy of the local development business plan program and history to also be shared with the new members of the Community Advisory Committee, as it is a very important program and budget issues are coming up. I know that you'll be voting on the next year's budget pretty soon. And certainly we want to be able to weigh in on that and have the community weigh in informatively. So thank you. Clean power to the people.
Thank you.
We have one more speaker with hand raised, Jennifer West. Jennifer West, I'm unmuting you now.
Hi, Jennifer.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. This is Jennifer West. I work at Stop Waste, and I just wanted to share that I also joined the retreat last Friday on the local development business plan, and not only appreciated the information that the staff shared, but also the board's deliberations. Stop Waste is a partner with EBCE in many ways, as is Bayren, as we are the Alameda County portion of Bayren. And similarly, we partner with you on the heat pump water heater incentives. So really happy to hear all of the information that was shared, especially the mapping tool that was shared around equity and affordable housing and EV charging, I thought was really eye-opening. So I just wanted to, we ran out of time on Friday for me to be able to share anything at that time, and I wanted to offer my support and continued partnership. Finally, on a personal level, I have been lucky to get to benefit and participate a little bit in the resilient home work here on my own home in Oakland, where I live. So really grateful to all of the input last Friday at the local development business plan retreat. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much. And appreciate all the board members who attended that. I think most or almost all the board members were at that retreat. And Adrian, maybe at this time you could just remind us when the very next of our board retreat sessions will be.
We are finalizing the date for our next board retreat, which will be for data and analytics as its focus, rather than regulatory PCIA. I will communicate the date. Literally, I just have to get one more response back, and I can finalize the date for that.
Okay, appreciate that. Okay, thank you all. And I don't see any other hands raised. So we are moving to our consent agenda, consent calendar for the agenda. If those of you, I think there are a handful of items on the consent agenda. If anybody has any questions about any of them or would like to pull any item on the consent agenda, now would be the time to do that. We'll give you a few seconds to raise your hand. If anybody wants to pull any items on the consent agenda, you can ask a question about an item without pulling it to save a little time. So if you have any questions about any of those items, now is the time to raise your hand for that as well. I'm not seeing any hands raised. So we will hear public speakers, but before that, I will entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda if anybody wants to make such a motion.
Councilmember Hammond from Newark, move the agenda, consent agenda.
I'll second it. Nara from Pleasanton.
Okay, the consent calendar has been moved and seconded. Now we will go to any public speakers on that agenda. If anybody in the public wants to raise their hand and speak on any of the consent items only, now would be the time to do so. Mr. Clerk, were there any people who submitted anything ahead of time for the consent agenda?
There were no submitted comments.
Okay, and I'm not seeing any hands raised in the attendee queue for the consent items. So, and I see no hands raised among board members. So I will ask for a roll call vote on the consent calendar.
Yes. Alameda County.
Aye.
Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley.
Yes.
Dublin.
Yes.
Fremont. Fremont. Hayward.
Aye.
Livermore.
Yes.
Newark.
Aye.
Piedmont. Piedmont. Pleasanton.
Aye.
San Leandro.
Aye.
Tracy.
Yes.
Union City.
Aye.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much to everyone. And now we are on the regular agenda. The first is our CEO report, which today I believe Howard will take care of to get that ball rolling. Howard?
Thanks, Chair Kolb. Let me provide just a brief summary of our recent and upcoming board-related meetings, and then I'll hand it off to my colleague Annie to provide an update on the marketing account services update. As Adrian pulls up the document, here we go. So we held our last executive committee meeting on February 26th. Members receiving an update regarding the formation of the California Community Choice Financing Authority to issue municipal bonds for prepaid transactions, along with an update on legislative positions and an overview of the SMUD Energy Help Program. Those last two items there are items that are on the agenda for this evening. The next meeting is scheduled for Friday, March 26th at 12 p.m. We had our Finance and Administrative Procurement Subcommittee meeting, the first of the year on March 10th, 2021, and we covered a review of the Q2 unaudited financial statements, as well as a report on our aged receivables. We did have additional topics related to the California Community Choice Financing Authority, as well as a summary of a review of community banks and credit unions, and a presentation on the impact of the ERCOT February extreme weather event. Those items will be deferred to the next meeting, which is still in the process of being scheduled, but most likely to be in the May timeframe. Due to some timing constraints, we pushed those to a different meeting since we're losing our meeting quorum. And then the Marketing, Regulatory, and Legislative Subcommittee meeting, the first one of the year, will be on Thursday, April 1st, 2021, from 12 to 2 p.m. That was just recently finalized. Next slide. We already referenced this earlier this evening, but we did do our first board retreat of the year focused on local development activities. We did that March 10th, 2021, with good attendance from the community and board, of course. And then you can see here just a tentative schedule for what we have lined up in the coming months. We did reorder things a little bit recently. We are planning for an April meeting on the topic of technology and analytics, a May meeting on power procurement. June will be focused on regulatory and PCIA, and then lastly, July on marketing. So we are still polling board members on availability and schedules to finalize the exact times for those, but at least the months are relatively set. With that, I'll hand it to my colleague Annie to give some updates related to marketing and account services.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, board. So we're going to start with the main activities. The big one, of course, happening is our new community enrollment. So we gave some very high-level stats here. Last, that overall our opt-out rate is still below 2%, and then provided the breakout by each city. We have been doing quite a bit of outreach. We did in late February 2 commercial webinars for these new communities. These have been recorded and are available on our website. Additional webinars for residential customers, sort of focused, one for each community, though much of the content is the same. We do speak to the default product and some other unique attributes. We just had the one for Pleasanton today, and we had exceptional attendance. We had over 50 people attending, and we're going to look to see if we could facilitate another one because there seems to be a lot of interest, a lot of questions. Tomorrow, we are hosting another residential webinar. Well, it's really for all solar customers in the new communities because those customers tend to have a lot of questions. So that information is all on our news and events page on the website. So I'm not sure of the registration for tomorrow's webinar, but certainly today was a really productive session with a lot of Q&A that we'll distribute and post on the site. For our notification, the second notice has begun to go out to our customers. In fact, I got my proof today in my own mail, which was very exciting. So these are both in hard copy as well as email to those who have an email on file. They are in both English, Spanish, and written Chinese. So trying to do a lot of in-language outreach given the limitations on in-person outreach for our new communities. Moving on to some other big topics, the time of use transition. You might start to have more constituents reaching out to you with questions. There's a lot more advertising being done by PG&E. I certainly hear it in the morning as I listen to my local NPR station. So in March, we have the commercial customers transitioning onto B rates within our current service territory, as well as in Pleasanton, Newark, and Tracy, this is happening as well. It's just we're not yet serving those customers. But the B rate transition is underway. For our current customers being served, that's about 50,000 customers. And then we will have our 30-day notice going out to residential customers within Alameda County who are currently on an E1 or tiered rate structure. That 30-day notice is going to go out next month in preparation for the May transition. There were also changes to the PG&E rates on March 1. We are still working on updating our EBCE generation rates, and that's simply to hold the value proposition as proposed for the 3 existing products. We anticipate that will go live on March 26th with an effective date of March 1. And these notices that I held up are provided as attachments to the report, as is the one-pager for time of use rates focused on our commercial customers. And that's it from me.
Great. There are no further updates related to the CEO report. Though I did want to mention, Chair Kolb, that there was a request to pull one of the agenda items, agenda item number 14 earlier due to availability. So I did want to flag that. You're muted.
You're saying item 14 should not be on the, we're going to pull that from the agenda because the staff is not.
Pull it earlier, sorry. Move it earlier into the agenda due to availability.
Oh,
yeah,
got it.
For that.
Got it. Okay. Well, we could do that next. Sure. Okay.
We do have one, I should say, my apologies to interject. We do have one hand raised.
For the CEO report, item number 10. Okay. Why don't we call the public speaker on item 10, and then we'll go to panelist questions. Vice Chair Martinez has a question. Let's go to the public speaker first.
Okay. Vaughn has his hand raised. I am unmuting Vaughn now.
Yeah, I'm Vaughn Wolf from Pleasanton. I received no notice from the city or EBCE about anything about a meeting today or in Pleasanton, and I am a solar generator. I have solar panels on my roof. Was this supposed to be mailed to us or emailed or what? I received nothing from the city or EBCE.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Clerk or our COO. I'll just start. EBCE, as you know, is a joint powers authority comprising of all the cities, or virtually all the cities in Alameda County, plus the city of Tracy. We have monthly meetings. Those residents who have reached out to us to ask to be informed of our meetings get information sent to them by reminder email, and of course, our website always tells the public when our upcoming meetings are, whether they're committee meetings or the full board meeting. I don't believe we have or would have the capacity to send a notice to every customer for every meeting. We don't. No one really does that. I'm unclear on your question, Vaughn. Is that your question?
Am I still talking? I don't.
Yes,
think
you
so.
are. You're unmuted.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
no, I mean for Pleasanton. The speaker referred to, you had a meeting in Pleasanton. I'm in Pleasanton. I didn't, and I am signed up for the meeting notices. I get the CAC and the legislative and obviously the board meeting, and I've been attending them for several months.
Right.
I got nothing about a Pleasanton meeting or webinar.
Okay, is anybody on staff who could share information about the recent Pleasanton-based informational meeting and how people were informed about that?
Sure. This, because it's not a public meeting, it was an event, it didn't go out through that distribution list, but we can certainly send those out in the future. There is another one that is slated on the 24th, I believe it is, for the city of Tracy, which will again cover much of the same information. And Vaughn, this sounds very timely for you. There is a webinar tomorrow that is specifically for solar customers. So that information is on our news and events page. Adrian, if there is a way to share Vaughn's contact information with me, I can email the link to the webinar.
I can't do it for tomorrow. Thank you. I am getting my second shot. That's a higher priority at this stage.
Congratulations.
Excellent.
And it will be recorded and posted on our website.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, now we have a couple of questions. Let's see, Vice Chair Martinez and then Councilmember Hannan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is for Annie as well. Annie, I'm glad that we're doing these webinars for NEM customers because they seem to be very educated on their products usually. But I'm wondering if you could kind of summarize for us what the overarching message is that you're giving to new NEM customers.
Sure. So for new NEM customers, perhaps you're referring to the fact that there is a decision coming up later in the agenda for the board to decide on what we're doing with our NEM policy.
Yes.
All of the NEM customers in the new communities, Pleasanton, Newark, and Tracy, will all go in as existing NEM because they already have solar installed. And the item that's coming to the board tonight is how to deal with new solar customers. So there isn't any decision on the board, there isn't any decision coming up tonight that is relevant to existing solar customers in the new communities right now. So our overarching message is about you still get the the net energy metering credits, meaning you get retail credit for the time when you export, and then you pay the standard rate for when you consume. The difference between those two populations is what happens on an annual basis if you are a surplus generator. And we don't have any new NEM customers yet in those communities, so it shouldn't impact anyone's decision at this point.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Annie. And Mike.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Cal. Annie, and I want to thank staff. I thought the marketing material that you sent to the residents of Newark was extremely professionally done. The fact that we did it in multiple language, I always appreciated because of the dynamics of our own community here in Newark. But I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you. I thought the material that you sent out was outstanding. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other hands raised, and that was, of course, informational. So, colleagues, we're going to go first to the Community Advisory Committee report, and then we're going to go to item 14, and then back to 12 and 13.
Paul, can I just interject for one moment? I was slightly mistaken about the reference to item 14. We actually need to have item 13 pass because it establishes a policy that would actually impact item 14. So while item 14 is the item that has been asked to be moved earlier in the agenda, I think we actually need to do 13 first, and then 14, and then we can do item 12 related to the legislative items.
Okay, so we'll do 11, 13, 14, and then go back to 12. 12 will be lengthy, but 11 should not be so lengthy. So Community Advisory Committee report, Mary Sutter.
Yep. And 11 is not going to be lengthy. I have two things I want to share with the board tonight. The first one was in the annotations package. We have a CAC member, Anna Olivia Eldred, that is working on a master's at Vermont Law with environmental law, I think is exactly, I don't have the exact one down, but she is working on her master's project. And that project is looking to create educational information for CCA board members and CAC members. She may be asking folks to take a survey. So you may be seeing one in the mail. She's working, or in your email. She's working on it now. It may be coming to you in the near future. This is not just for EBCE, but this is statewide. So that may be coming. So that's the first item. The second is in reference to what Jessica was talking about. I have been in contact with EBCE staff, and Alex is working with us right now on the CAC members.
Yeah,
And,
no, go ahead. I may just have to get off if they start wanting to vote.
So somebody maybe need to mute themselves. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Right.
So the second thing is about CAC applications. Right now, staff, EBCE staff is looking at these applications. They're doing eligibility review. They're planning on contacting individual board members, according to Alex, by the end of this week or early next week. So you should be seeing things in your email box. I hope that you can act on those soon. So we'd love to have these people appointed and by the next meeting, which is April 19th. The other thing is we do have 2 members on the current CAC who are up for reappointment. I've been in contact with both of them. One is interested and the other in being reappointed, but that is at the discretion of the director for the geographic area, and I'll be in contact, or actually I'm going to ask Alex to reach out to you. The other person is still considering it. So you may be also hearing from Alex about those folks. That's it. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mary. Do we have any public speakers raising their hand or expressing interest ahead of time to speak on this item?
We do not have public speakers for this item.
Okay, and I see nobody raising their hand. Okay, so we're going to skip 12 right now and go to item 13 and then 14. And let's see, who's focusing on item 13? Howard?
That will be Annie.
Okay, Annie?
All right, item 13 is a overall policy that addresses JPA member requests to change their default rate product. This was presented as an informational item last month to the board, and we've brought it back. It is identical with a couple exceptions based on feedback that we received last month. The first difference is that we did within the memo itself include estimates about the cost to implement such a change. So roughly $15,000 for the back-end operations, and then roughly $1 per customer for what the policy would have be required notifications. So for an example of 40,000 accounts in a jurisdiction, that would be $40,000. As a reminder, this policy includes that each member jurisdiction could request a change of their default policy and get approved that change in product once every 2 years. That the first change would be at the cost of the agency, but any subsequent change would be at the cost of the jurisdiction. The second change that we made was to the policy itself, and it's within the introduction section, the first 2 paragraphs, to indicate that this policy would not be applicable when the change in the default rate product was the result of a rate product closure. Otherwise, all of the other information is the same as it was presented last month. So we're asking the board tonight to approve this policy that would then apply to all members. And then item 14 will ask the board to approve this rate change for the City of Dublin.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions or need for a brief refresher beyond what Annie already said before we consider voting on it? While board members are thinking about possible questions, Mr. Clerk, do we have any attendees who have lined up to speak or have asked to speak on this item?
Yes, we do. We have Jessica Tovar. Jessica Tovar, I am unmuting you now.
Hi, Jessica Tovar with East Bay Clean Power Alliance. And I just wanted to speak to just the concerns that have been brought up before about the statistic where only 30% of household ratepayers are enrolled in CARE and FARA, meaning that there's a huge amount of people who are eligible for the program right now but aren't enrolled. And when we changed the plan of each city to potentially renewable 100, we are also making that decision to raise the amount that they're paying per month. And so that is a concern. It should be taken very seriously in the context of the situation that we're in right now. And huge investment in putting money and energy towards getting people enrolled into those programs so that they can also be eligible for other programs like that we've talked about in the past, like AMP, for example. So I just wanted to highlight that. Certainly, you know, going towards 100% clean energy, renewable energy is really important, but we should be careful about, you know, making certain folks who can't pay more. That's it.
Thank you. And I see a couple more people, Mr. Clerk.
Yes. I am unmuting David McCord now.
David McCord with the Sierra Club of San Francisco Bay chapter. We do support this measure while taking account for equity for people for whom this would be hard financially. I'm done.
Okay.
I see one more speaker.
Yes. I am unmuting Blair Beekman now.
Hi, thank you. Blair Beekman here. I wanted to quickly comment. I really appreciate the words of the previous two public comments, and being from San Jose and living in Fremont at this time, you know, I think they're interested in the subsidy process that is possible and what your initial ideas have done for EBCE the past year have been really good and really interesting. And how do we talk about the future? You know, I'm trying to work on in San Jose. How can the subsidy process be kind of like more acceptable? And it doesn't have to be a scary subject, and people don't get shortchanged or robbed out of the process. And, you know, it's this conundrum of life in this country that we don't make these things accessible. You have to go through these certain hoops of life that are like psychological and religious almost. And it's sad. It's not just, here, friend, you know, you're in trouble. Here you go. It comes with a certain set of rules and stipulations. I hope we're working to get past that. And it's oftentimes just simple Victorian propriety that won't allow us to offer our better practices that we have and that we're doing. It's just somehow impolite to say that, to offer such things when we always try to, for the most part. So good luck in how the subsidy program can really be helpful to people and not be afraid of it in this time of COVID. In this time of COVID, we don't want to go over the line with certain issues. But, you know, I think it is these sorts of things that we really have to address out of the COVID era that I hope we can. And I gave good points in speaking in San Jose today that, you know, Alameda County has a real nice way to go about this process, but yet it is humble and people end up being screwed over because of it. In San Jose, they're a bit worse at it, actually. And I use the word pussyfooting. It's not a very good word, but we pussyfoot around the subject of how subsidies can be of help. And I just hope that we learn how to be more open and straightforward so no one gets hurt. And that's the key to our future right now. No one has to be hurt. And it's from there we address that, this COVID issue is not our fault and we shouldn't be held responsible to its debt burden. And those are important concepts to realize. Thank you for your time and allowing my 3 minutes of patience, of your patience for myself. We're not guilty. And how do we address this debt burden openly and honestly? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I believe that's our speakers. And back to our board members. I see Councilmember Marquez. You have a question or comment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I have one question, but I was able to find it in the staff report. So just to be clear that if this is approved tonight, the policy direction, we will have to vote as board members whether or not to approve this for jurisdiction. Is that correct, Annie?
Yes, this policy is really addressing the operational concerns and customer outreach concerns with changes in the default product, but to actually, for a city to change its product, that would continue to come back to the board for approval, as that is, at least historically for us, has been considered rate setting, and only the board can set rates.
Okay. And was there any discussion in regard to a minimum requirement, how long a municipality has to be a customer before they can request a change?
That was not considered in the policy, no.
Okay.
However, we did state that once a change was implemented, it couldn't occur again for 2 years.
Okay. Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Harrison.
Yeah, thank you, Annie. I had a question about the practicalities. If we're looking for board approval in September for a change the next March, how far in advance of that September date do we need to get this to your staff, get this heard by the board?
We typically prepare our materials about 10 days in advance of the board meeting. So I would say, by the middle of August, we would, or let me rephrase that. If your city council made the decision in August so that we could then bring it to our board in September, that would be my recommendation.
So about a month, that's all, yeah. Okay, great, thank you for your help.
A month sounds good. That's excellent. Thank you, Councilmember Harrison, and thank you, Annie, for your great work on this. And I will now entertain a motion to adopt the policy as proposed by staff.
So moved by Mike Hannon from Newark.
Okay, it's been moved.
Second by Hernandez from Dublin.
Second by Mayor Hernandez from City of Dublin. And seeing no more questions, and Mr. Clerk, can we call the roll, please?
As soon as I can find the unmute button. Yes, Alameda County.
Aye.
Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley.
Yes.
Dublin.
Yes.
Fremont. Fremont. Hayward.
Yes.
Livermore.
Yes.
Newark.
Yes.
Piedmont. Piedmont. Pleasanton.
Yes.
San Leandro.
Aye.
Tracy.
Yes.
Union City.
Aye.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
Measure passes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all. Thanks to the staff and to all the thoughts and considerations that went into this. And now we'll move to item 14. I will note that we have not one, but two esteemed members from the City of Dublin here, Mayor Hernandez and Councilmember Kamagi. Did I pronounce that right, Sean?
Kumagai.
Kumagai, my apologies. I should know that by now.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so Annie, I'll have you start with the presentation, and then we'll allow our members, our two members here from City of Dublin to share their information for all of us, and we'll ask some questions.
First, thank you, Board, for approving the policy as presented on the default rate product change. Now we can actually put it into action here with the City of Dublin request. So the City of Dublin recently went through the next version of their climate action plan. They identified opting up residential customers to Renewable 100 as one mechanism to help them meet their goals. And so their City Council passed a resolution that would opt up residential customers only to Renewable 100. New residential customers, new accounts that are established would then be defaulted onto Renewable 100. Customers that are currently on Brilliant 100 would remain there because that is a closed account, a closed product. We didn't want to, and that would have already been a voluntary opt-up, and it is 100% carbon-free, so that will remain. And then those customers that are on the CARE, FARA, or Medical Baseline Allowance programs would remain on Bright Choice in order to see the 1% discount and cost savings. So with the policy passed, if the board approves this default rate product change, it would be implemented in October of this year. And we would work with the City of Dublin to send out those 2 notices and any other customer communications and outreach that they were interested in working on. And so we have a resolution to approve the request as well as a copy of the City of Dublin City Council resolution.
Thank you. Mayor Hernandez, did you want to share any information or present?
Sure. I just wanted to honestly just let everyone know that our council is all excited about making sure that you know, we can offer the Renewal 100 to all of our residents. You know, we have made it, you know, when one of our East Bay Community Energy member or staffers came out, they took questions from, you know, from the residents as well when we were deciding to do this. And we feel that this is the way our city is headed, not only just in this, but also in all the other developments that we're bringing forward. We're really trying to be green. And so we feel that we want to be, you know, a role model for other cities in the future as well. So again, we would be happy to have an approval this evening. I'm not sure if Councilmember Kumagai actually would probably want to say something, because he brought this forward to us, and I know that he's been a big leader with you know, clean energy.
Councilmember Kumagai, I believe it's Vice Mayor Kumagai, is that right?
Yes, this year, Vice Mayor. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're all very excited for this opportunity. I do respectfully ask that the board approve this. You know, when we took a look at our climate action plan, this was such a substantial portion of what we could do as a city to lower our greenhouse gas emissions, and it was really pretty shocking. And of course, you know, as the data shows, if we opt people in, they tend to stay in, and you know, it's just a really heavy lift to try to get people to opt in themselves. So this default action will really help us to make those goals, and I do hope other municipalities will look at this as an option going forward.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you for your leadership in Dublin and being a model for moving the clean energy world forward here locally in the East Bay. And I'm now going to ask for any public speakers on this item. If any public speakers would like to raise their hand, or if any of them have submitted cards in advance, now is the time.
Jessica Tovar has raised her hand. I am allowing her to speak now.
Hi, Jessica again, East Bay Clean Power Alliance. Just want to emphasize my comments are the same as the last time, is that the onus really is now on recruiting folks to sign up for the CARE programs, and make sure that people who are eligible get enrolled in the resources they need, so they can stay afloat when it comes to utility bills, especially now in this context of COVID. I think that's really important. And so that's where the energy and the resources need to be invested. And I'll speak more to that later in the item that pertains to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, colleagues, if there are any questions or comments from board members, Councilmember Harrison.
Yeah, I want to thank you for doing this. We are exploring this also in Berkeley. We have run into concerns about our CARE and FERA customers, as well as some initial concern by EBCE staff on the impact on them. So I'm going to be very interested in talking with you about, Vice Mayor Kumagai, about your experiences and what you were planning to do about the enrollment of people in CARE and FERA. And I know we're going to get to this later. I'm also curious about what you're doing, if you're taking the lead on that enrollment, or whether you see that as a role for EBCE. And perhaps we can talk about that when we get to that item. But that was our main hang up. What do we do about lower income people who we might be affecting by doing this? Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you very much. I also am very excited here. I am thankful to you, Vice Mayor Kumagai, for your leadership, and to Mayor Hernandez for hers, and the entire city of Dublin for championing this first effort within the service area. I look forward to other cities following suit. Like my colleague from Berkeley, Councilmember Harris, I am also interested in understanding, impacts to communities that are disadvantaged economically. I'd like to get some feedback too on how that happens around this time, particularly in COVID, and that'll be helpful for our own conversations. I am looking at this and looking to bring this forward. So thank you again for your work here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cac.
Was going to say most of the things everybody else already said. So thanks Dublin for doing this and leading the way for the rest of cities to hopefully follow suit.
Okay, not seeing any more hands raised. Mayor Hernandez, would you like to make a motion?
I would love to make a motion.
Okay, I will take that as the motion to adopt this item as proposed.
I'll second.
Who was, I don't know who seconded it first.
I think it was all of it.
I'll let the clerk figure that out. And we have a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, we can call the roll.
Yes. Alameda County.
Aye.
Hold on one second. Albany.
Yes.
Dublin.
Yes.
Berkeley.
Yes.
Fremont. Fremont. Hayward.
Aye.
Livermore.
Yes.
Newark.
Aye.
Piedmont. Piedmont. Pleasanton.
Yes.
San Leandro.
Aye.
San Leandro. Did I hear none?
Aye.
Tracy.
Yes.
Union City.
Aye.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
The measure passes.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you again to our colleagues in Dublin, and looking forward to seeing this implemented. Okay, now we're going to move back to item 12, which is our discussion and approval of legislative positions for this year. And let's see, who is presenting on that?
That would be me.
Is that Melissa?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. I have to warn everybody, I'm having some technical difficulties on my computer, so hopefully you can see video. I cannot at the moment, and my screen is very small, but hopefully that will not affect this presentation. So I'm assuming you have the slides up. Today, I wanted to give you an update on a couple items and then ask you to consider adopting some staff recommended positions on some legislation as well. We haven't actually had such a comprehensive update in quite some time, particularly because with COVID-19, the legislature last year didn't really address many issues that we cared about. And so this year, I think it's now that folks have figured out how to work around COVID-19, we're seeing legislation come back with a bang, which is exciting. So if we can move to the first slide about EBCE's legislative program. I wanted to make sure that the board, that everybody on the board was aware of the existence of this program, given that it was adopted by the board a couple of years ago. And I've updated it with just some clarifying edits and updates to the board member list and our staff contacts. But essentially it lays out the legislative principles that we follow when we're looking at potential new legislation. And so it highlights some general principles and then it highlights some more specific principles. And I did include a copy of that with your board packet on this item. So if you want to look at it in more depth, please feel free to do so. But the general legislative principles include accelerating decarbonization, promoting local development, and stabilizing community choice. Next slide, please. So in addition to the general legislative principles, we have some specific public policy positions in the following 5 areas around non-bypassable charges, disadvantaged communities, environmental sustainability, finance, and then educational, neighborhood, and social services. And so these positions just give a little bit more specificity to areas that we're going to want to either take positions in or oppose, depending on what the legislation is doing versus these particular issues. So that's the update on the legislative program. Now I'm going to move into what's going on in this legislative year. So next slide, please. This one should give you the key deadlines for the 2021 legislative year. And I think it's important to note the bill introduction deadline was back in February. Now we are seeing bills in their first house in the first year of a 2-year bill cycle. So some bills will get passed this year, other bills may actually go on to a second year. In any case, right now the bills are being amended and being sent to policy committees for first hearings. Once the hearings are over, policy committees will be moving fiscal bills to the fiscal committees and then to the House floor. And then bills that do not have fiscal implications would go directly to the floor. So each House has to pass the bills introduced in that House by June 4th to move them forward. The governor's required, or the legislature is required to pass the budget bill by the 15th of June. And then things move to the second House. The policy committees by July 14th have to have reported bills either onto fiscal committees or to the floor. The fiscal committees have until August 27th. And then by September 10th, that's actually the last day for bills to be passed. The governor has until October 10th to sign or veto bills. One point I wanted to make here is that we're still very early on in the legislative cycle, which means that right now we still have some spot bills that don't really contain a lot of content yet. We have other bill ideas that are interesting, but not yet necessarily terribly fleshed out. We're going to expect to see some pretty major changes, particularly over the summer. And that's usually when things get interesting and we have to watch really carefully to make sure that amendments don't run counter to the positions that we've taken. So typically what we would do is we will take positions when we feel that we have a certain level of comfort about what's in the bill, and then we can always adjust if something changes. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to highlight for you some of the key themes that are emerging in 2021 among the energy bills. We're seeing a lot of activity in the building decarbonization space this year, much more than we've seen in the past. We're also seeing bills that deal with clean energy and storage, and that includes things like supporting different clean energy technology development. It includes specifying counting rules for compliance purposes and addressing tariffs. We're also seeing bills that address de-energization, which is no surprise given the PSPS events of the last few years and how much impact those have had. And then similarly, we're seeing bills around grid reliability and resource adequacy, which again is not a surprise given the blackouts last summer. I think there's a real push to try to prevent that from repeating in future years. Central procurement has been a theme over the last few years, and that one is back, which again is not really a surprise. And then this year, we're also seeing a bit more of a focus on equity, and we're seeing that in many cases through the programs or the funding that are being offered for some of the proposed programs. Next slide, please. So I did want to update the board that at the executive committee meeting in February, the committee voted to support SB 612. And so typically, depending on the timing, we will go either to the full board for a bill position, or if we don't, if it's strategic to have a position sooner than we're able to go to a board meeting, then we may ask the executive committee to take a position. So in this case, because we were really hoping to have a lot of support for this bill early on so that we could seek additional co-authors, the executive committee did vote to support SB 612. It's authored by Portantino. It's actually a Cca sponsored bill. And it essentially does what the CCAs had been working with utilities, particularly Southern California Edison, to do in the PCIA working group to ensure that CCA customers have access to the valuable products that are coming out of the legacy resources that the utilities hold and that we are all paying for through the PCIA. So, so we think it's a really important bill in helping to mitigate some of the costs of PCIA for our customers, ensuring that we have better planning trajectory on PCIA and on these resources and our access to them in the next years. And so I would say this bill has 20 co-authors at the moment, which is quite substantial, but it's still very early on in the process, and we are continuing to seek additional co-authors right now from EBCE's delegation. Assembly members Bauer, Cahan, and Lee have both signed on as co-authors. Okay, next slide, please. So now I'm going to get into some of the recommended bill positions, first for Assembly bills and then second for Senate bills. For the Assembly, we have a number of bills this year that we're recommending, and you'll see in my slides, I've highlighted if one of the authors is from EBCE's delegation. I've put them in blue just to call that out. So Assemblymember Bauer-Cahan is authoring AB 427, and it's a bill that really deals with the rules of counting for resource adequacy and would allow, would essentially require the CPUC to look a little bit more closely at the intersection between demand response, energy storage, including behind the meter storage with distributed generation and resource adequacy. This is similar to a bill that she had put out last year, but we actually think this bill is more likely to be effective. And so given that it could increase the amount of demand response and energy storage that can count for RA purposes, we think this would really help support investments in demand response and behind the meter energy storage, and therefore recommend support. The next bill, AB 525, authored by Chu, would require the CEC, the Energy Commission, to develop a plan to achieve 10,000 megawatts of offshore wind by 2040. It would also require the CPUC to include offshore wind in the Integrated Resources Plan. So I think here, offshore wind is a renewable resource, and one that actually has a very nice reliability profile because the wind is always blowing offshore. And so to the extent that California can increase its development of offshore wind, that gives us additional green resources to be able to invest in. Also, there's an opportunity here, given what's happening at the federal level, to really take advantage of federal goals in moving our state goals forward. So we recommend support here. AB 843, authored by Agua Curry, is a bill that is sponsored by a group of CCAs, and not EBCE, but a group of other CCAs. And it would allow CCAs to enter into contracts under the CPUC's BioMat program and recover those costs through a non-bypassable charge that all customers pay today for the BioMat program. So today, only the investor-owned utilities can enter into those contracts. And the idea is that CCAs could perhaps do that procurement better, bring their contracts to the CPUC for the same cost recovery. And I think the reason it's important EBCE take a support position on this bill is because it does set a nice precedent for us taking the place as the procurer of products that are valuable to all customers. There's a number of different procurements that are done for the broader public good, and there's no reason that it has to always be an investor-owned utility doing that procurement. There are many instances we may be more effective than the investor-owned utility in doing those procurements, and so this would kind of broaden our opportunities for seeking those opportunities in the future. The next bill is the one I am recommending to take a support if amended position on. This is AB 1087, authored by Chu. And this one focuses on environmental justice community resilience hubs. It would reallocate funding from the California Climate Credit to a streamlined grant program that would essentially invest in resiliency improvements in buildings that are important for a community or that serve as a community hub. And so the building upgrades could include building insulation, clean energy microgrids installations for backup power, air filtration systems to combat wildfire smoke. And this one is supported by a group of environmental justice organizations. The reason that I have this as support if amended is because currently the construct depends on a third-party implementer or an investor-owned utility to run the grants. And we think that CCAs could play a really key role here in effectively making this happen, particularly because of our close partnerships with our communities. So we'd like to have the opportunity to talk more with the author and with the sponsors about how CCAs can play a bigger role in this bill. AB 1539 is a bill by Levine that essentially it's probably the simplest bill here, would require the Energy Commission to keep an EV infrastructure training course available online indefinitely. Right now, they're supposed to take it down at the end of 2024, but it's a training course that we will be likely relying on to help train contractors as part of the Cal EVIP program we're going to be implementing, and we think it's a useful resource and would support it staying online and available. The last assembly bill is actually kind of an interesting case because it's not yet in print, but Ting is looking to introduce a budget bill, and budget bills have a bit of a different process to them than the rest of the bills. We've been told it's likely to be heard in the committee the week of the 22nd, although that's not been finalized yet. And the bill concept here would be to reallocate some unused funds from the new Solar Homes Partnership Program and instead apply them to two new programs. One that would address residential building decarb efforts, and the second that would give grants to local governments to adopt automated permitting systems to support reducing home greenhouse gas emissions. So the two programs go hand in hand, but essentially to help with residential building decarbonization. We've been told that one of the biggest barriers to more residential building decarbonization is funding. And so this would be a way to try to mitigate that. So what I would say here is I'm asking for a support position so that we could give an oral support vote when the bill is introduced in committee. However, if the bill deviates significantly from how I've described it here, we would obviously not be giving that position. So a vote of support here is a vote to support the concept as I've laid out. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to go through the Senate bills. There's fewer of these. SB 31 by Cortez would require the CEC to identify and implement additional programs to promote existing and new building decarbonization. It would also authorize the CEC, if the legislature allocates it, to expend federal funds for these types of projects. It would expand what's eligible under the EPIC program to include building decarbonization investments as well. Given our focus on building decarbonization and our interest in promoting that, we thought that this was one worth supporting at this stage. SB 52 by Dodd would expand the definition of sudden and severe energy shortage to include de-energization events. And what that would do is it would essentially make them considered under the definitions of state of emergency and local emergency, which allows for more state and local governmental intervention as might be needed during a de-energization event. So this one also seemed like it would give more power to our local entities if we are faced with additional PSPS events. SB 99 is another Dodd bill, and this one would require the CEC to develop and implement a grant program for local governments to develop community energy resilience plans. So it seemed like a nice opportunity for our local governments to get some funding to do this very important energy resilience work. SB 35 is a bill authored by Becker. And this one would require the Cpuc to establish common definitions of non-energy benefits and then use those definitions in a more consistent way in doing evaluations of distributed energy resource programs. I think this one actually goes very well together with our goals in the local development business plan. And I think just EBCE's goals more generally to look beyond just the strict energy benefits and community benefits. And so, so this bill would help speed that process along and standardize it. It's something that we feel we've been waiting for quite some time, and will hopefully ensure that the true benefits of distributed energy resources are recognized in programs. And then finally, SB 551 by Stern would establish a new California EV authority in the governor's office. It would be responsible for coordinating a bunch of state agency activities around EV deployment and zero emission charging infrastructure. Would also create some funding and financing tools to support those deployments, and would have a focus on equity and how to ensure that that's prioritized. Right now, there are a lot of state agency activities around EV, but they're not centrally coordinated. And this is something that our team has been working with other stakeholders, including the bill sponsors, to see if we could find a way to better coordinate on the state level. And so given that, that Stern picked up this bill idea that we were helping to develop, it's again, something that we think is worth supporting at this stage. Now, what you will notice in these last two slides is that my recommended positions have been nearly entirely support. Again, that's because it's very early on in the cycle. I think if we're going to take an opposed position, we want to really be sure of where the legislation is headed. We may want to talk first to the authors and sponsors, see what flexibility there might be before we take a opposed position. So these early recommendations tend to be more in the support camp. The next two slides actually just go through bills that we are watching, and I didn't plan to talk through them unless you would like me to, but I think they're more for your information that these are bills that we are actively tracking. I actually have a bill tracker going with over 70 bills right now, and more keep getting added every day. But these are some of the key ones that we're going to want to keep a close eye on over the next few weeks. And so then I would move on to the last slide, which says next steps at the top. Our team is going to continue to review and analyze bills and amendments. When we take a formal position, then I get position letters out. We're going to continue monitoring all the bills on our watch list and determining when we should try to take a more formal position. We're also continuing to monitor the governor's budget request, which included $1.5 billion for zero-emission vehicles and where that's being implemented. And then we're continuing to engage with Cca on legislative efforts, including our collaboration with them on the SB 612 bill that I discussed in the beginning. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you to all the work that you're doing and the team is doing to track legislation and share the summaries and provide the recommendations. Are there any initial clarifying questions, colleagues? We do have a few public speakers, and we'll have a discussion before we vote. But are there any clarifying questions that anybody on the board would like to ask at this point for any of the bills? Okay, while board members are considering possible questions, Mr. Clerk, why don't we go to our public speakers for this item?
Yes, we have two public speakers. Let me just get my list. I am unmuting Vaughn now.
Yeah, my question would be, when they're talking about EV vehicles, are they also talking about hydrogen fueling? And also, is in any of these bills lean towards green hydrogen, like particularly the offshore wind combined with green hydrogen is what most of Northern Europe is addressing or attempting? Just a point of interest. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's get the other speaker, then we'll ask staff to answer the questions.
I am unmuting Blair Beekman now.
Hi, thank you. Thank you again for your patience with my previous words. For this item, I just wanted to quickly offer that San Jose, the wonders of San Jose, they're working on natural gas reduction issues. They've been doing this for many years now, and it's always been of interest to myself, and it's always of interest to consider that programs we've been working on pre-COVID-19, how we can continue those efforts at this time. And the reduction of natural gas in our future is really important and meaningful. And good luck in your efforts, what you're working on here today. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm not seeing any other speakers in the attendee queue for this item. So board members, let's see, we have a question, a comment from Councilmember Cc.
I was just wondering, what is the course of action as we learn a little bit more about these as individual board members to bolster the support that maybe the entire board is maybe moving forward with?
I'm going to ask Melissa, if you could answer that question the best you can. I might have an answer to that as well. And also the question about the green hydrogen question that one of the speakers also asked.
Sure. So in terms of how to bolster the support, I think in addition to EBCE taking a position, the cities can also take positions on bills. And so as an example, with SB 612, once our executive committee took the support position, I'm informed our cities, and at least 3 cities have also sent in support positions. So that can be a really great way to bolster that support. Also working with the League of Cities when they are looking to take positions on these bills and ensuring that they're informed about where we stand on the bills. So hopefully that answered your question. In terms of the other question about green hydrogen, one of the bills that is on my watch list is SB 18 by Senator Skinner, and that is a bill focused on the development of green hydrogen. It just passed out of the Senate EU&C committee and is headed, I think, to the Environmental Quality Committee next. It's a bill, I think, that there's a little bit of controversy behind because it expands the definition of green hydrogen to include some forms of fossil-free, non-fossil technologies that still produce emissions. And so that's kind of the source of the controversy. So I think we wanted to wait a little bit longer and have more of an opportunity to talk to the stakeholders and get a sense of where the bill was headed before we decided to take a position.
Thank you. I'll just add to Councilmember Kick's question. I mean, we have several bills that we're going to take a position on shortly. There may be or likely to be a subset of those bills, maybe just a few, and certainly the one that that CCA, Cal Cca is sponsoring. That if staff is recommending that each of our councils to put forward our own resolution and submit that, staff needs to let us know. I mean, because we all of us in our various capacities will put in resolutions from time to time to endorse state bills on this or that or what have you. And sometimes those come from various JPAs or community groups or ourselves. And so if there's a priority bill that you think it'd be helpful to have every single jurisdiction has sent its own letter in from its own city council, then we should know that and let us go through the traps and process to make that happen. And then there's always the lobbying. If any of our own if any of the state legislators in our jurisdictions are on the fence, by all means, staff will let us know, and we'll be asked to lobby the appropriate member at the appropriate time, if that happens. I don't expect that to happen, but anything's possible, so that could happen. And staff will need to let us know in as much advance as possible if that situation were to occur. Do you concur with that, Melissa? Was I on point there?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I see. Thank you. And I see a question from Councilmember Hannan, and then from Mary Sutter, and then Kate Harrison.
Melissa, very smart to always agree with the chairman when he makes a statement like that. Kudos to you. Thank you, Chairman Kalb. Excellent report. I feel I greatly appreciate the detail. I absolutely support the executive board either putting a position of support or opposition based on staff's recommendation, especially if it's necessary in a timely manner. I would imagine if that does occur, will we be advised through the CEO's report that a position was taken in support or in opposition of a legislative item?
Yes, so either through the CEO's report or through my own report, as we're doing today. Yeah.
Perfect. And the only other question I would ask is, as you look at these bills going through the state, I'm always concerned about these unfunded mandates that the state sometimes has a tendency of putting on through that at the end of the day may have significant cost to local governments. If you see that occurring in any specific bill, if you would at least highlight that as you give your presentation, so we can certainly make an informed decision, that may be something we might want to take a closer look at in terms of its implications to us as local governments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mike. And let's see, Mary.
Great, thank you. I wanted to pass along to the board that the CAC actually had a motion on this. And for those of you who are new, at the CAC, we can't take action to pass anything, but what we do is take action to have a position to advise the board. So we did vote on this particular item. Melissa presented it to us on Monday night and it passed, but it was a split vote. It was 3-2. There were only 5 of us, but that was our quorum for Monday. And there were a couple, the folks that chose not to support this were really concerned about SB 612, which was that very first bill that Melissa talked about that it actually EBCE currently has a support position on and has sent a letter. But there was concern about that particular bill and really a desire among the CAC members to understand a little bit more about the details before fully supporting or opposing kind of the raft of bills that were here. That was it from the CAC.
Thank you. Councilmember Harrison, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, very quickly, thanks for your report, Melissa. On the TING funding bill, I'm assuming that EBC and other CCAs are not local government for purposes of acquiring these funds. Is that correct?
We actually can be local government, so I think it depends.
Okay, because I oftentimes we're struggling to carry on these programs, and I'd like to do more of that through you. And I like working through EBC as a vehicle. So just if you could, whenever you're talking about funding, can you let us know whether it can also be applied for by the CCAs? That would be really helpful. And then I just have a question about whether we ever ask an author to be more ambitious. And the reason I say that is because AB 525 to me is not ambitious enough. We already have we have a fair amount of wind power already in California, 6 gigawatts, and this bill would only add 3 by 2030, and then add another, get up to 10 by 2040, and we're supposed to be carbon free by 2030. This isn't to say we wouldn't take a support position, but I'm wondering if we can ever say to an author, we really want to support you, and if you wanted to go further, we think it would be great. Basically, as everyone knows, the National Renewable Energy Lab has said that they think we have 112 gigawatts capacity for wind in California. So, since our mission is to support renewable energy, I just feel like this is too mild. And I don't know how you might communicate that to him without suggesting in any way they're not supporting his efforts.
We can absolutely tell the authors if we think that there's some improvement that could be made to their bill, and then it's up to them whether or not they want to make that. I have a sense that they probably didn't want to go more ambitious here because it's already somewhat controversial and folks are afraid of costs and a new procurement mandate. And so they're probably trying to keep it simple, but just by putting together the strategic plan for this quantity, it really does lay the foundation for rapid growth in this area. So we may be able to achieve a bigger goal, even if the strategic plan doesn't necessarily contemplate that higher number.
Great, thank you for your comments, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Melissa. It might be helpful, I'm not sure, I know you have the information, it's not in the chart, and I realize these PowerPoint charts can only say so much, but when there is a sponsoring organization or 2 or 3, it might be helpful to have that in the summary description, because that could be very telling to us as to who is putting this forward in your subsequent updates, if that's possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then something I think I've said once before, if you don't mind. Oh, we have another person in the queue. I think I said a couple times before, possibly, that are we on bills where we are leading, we or Cal CCA, and we're part of that, are leading, whether it's the one that we already took a position on, or other bills that we're not the sponsor, but we feel, oh, this is a really great bill that would be helpful to CCAs or to EBCE. How much are we being engaged in kind of growing the coalition and doing the typical activist kind of legwork to build more support, get more letters in, build more support, get more people, doing lobbying around the state? or are we just expecting the Cal CCA to do that, and they're still relatively new up in Sacramento? It's just, big bills take a lot of effort, as you know.
Absolutely. So we work very closely with Cal CCA. The Cal CCA has a legislative committee, and so we work largely through that committee. We work closely with our own lobbyists, and our lobbyists also partner with Cal CCA's lobbyists. So there's a lot of information being shared. Often what we will do is look at what is it that we can do for EBCE. We can engage our contacts, we can engage our delegation, and other CCAs can kind of do the same. Yearly, Cal CCA has had a lobby day, which we've been very active in as well. This year, because of COVID, that won't happen, but I presume it will pick up again next year. But no, we're very active behind the scenes when we have a bill that we care about and that's important. Between talking to different stakeholders, drafting amendments, talking with the author's office to try to understand the opportunity for amendments, and then doing whatever other lobbying is needed. That's all part of what we do.
Okay, I think that sounds good. Thank you. Very good. I think I'm just suggesting that as part of that lobbying, I think we should have an expectation on ourselves, either through our lobbyist or what have you, that, oh, here's a very important bill. It's going to be not an easy one to pass. It needs more, community-based or support around the state to get enough votes out of committee or on the floor. Therefore, we have to go find these 5 organizations and these 2 local governments in a different part of the state, or some players who could take positions on bills that might add a little weight to the coalition. And that's advocacy groups do that all the time. That's what they do. We need to sometimes do that. We need to do the same kind of thing sometimes. That's what I'm just suggesting.
Absolutely.
Okay, I see. We have Fremont is here today. Who is here? Who is here from Fremont?
Theresa Cox.
Okay, Councilmember Cox. Hi. There you are. Yes, you are now up. Go ahead.
Thank you. And you made great points there, Chair. I support that because that was one of my other questions. One of the other ones is that we know that our small minority women-owned businesses are struggling, veteran businesses too, and trying to see, did you see any trends in legislation that would help in that area as well to create some opportunities?
Not that I recall, not this cycle. I will say that because of EBCE being a public agency that can't take certain preferences into account in our contracting, it's not something I looked for terribly closely, but it's not something that I came across in the energy bills.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Colleagues, anybody else have any questions or comments about any of the specific bills? Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to share with the committee that the mayor of the city of Hayward did write a letter in support of SB 612. So I would encourage other cities to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we're all on the hook. We all got to do the same thing now. There we go. Okay, so I see another hands raised. I'm happy to entertain a motion to adopt the staff positions as recommended that were presented to us.
I move Lopez.
Oh, who is that?
I believe it's Lopez.
Councilmember Lopez.
If Councilmember Marquez would like to move that, I wouldn't mind being the second. That's fine.
I'll second. It's okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we have Lopez made the motion and Marquez made the second, if I got that correct.
Thank you, Chair.
And we will call the roll.
Yes. Alameda County.
Richard had to take a step away.
Yes. Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley.
Yes.
Dublin.
Yes.
Fremont.
Yes.
Hayward.
Aye.
Livermore,
Yes.
Newark,
Aye.
Piedmont, Pleasanton,
Yes.
San Leandro,
Aye.
Tracy,
Yes.
Union City,
Aye.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Wait, who's voting for you, Emeryville? Is that
Oh,
you?
I'm
or-
sorry. We only meant to vote once.
I registered one vote for Emeryville and Oakland.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you, Melissa, for your great work, and as well as our lobbyist and the Cca folks. We'll get more updates on these bills, both at full board meetings and the legislative committee, which I believe is meeting in early April, if I understand correctly. Great. Okay. So we're now moving on. If I could get to the agenda, I'll tell you where we're moving to. Okay, we're now on item 15. This is an action item on net metering. And who's leading on this?
Great. Good evening. Hi, Chair Calb. I'm Kelly Brezovec. I'm the Senior Manager of Account Services, and I'll be going through this item this evening. So good evening to you, the rest of the EBCE board directors and members of the public. Last month, JP Ross, VP of Local Development, Electrification and Innovation, and I presented an informational item on this topic for discussion. And we appreciate your input at that last meeting, and you'll see that we've taken into account some of your comments. So if we go to the next slide. Thanks. I'll just quickly review the NEM programs as they are today. This came up just a few minutes ago in our in the discussion about the NEM presentation that we're going to be having tomorrow. And so as you see here, we have our existing NEM. That's customers that already have a system installed prior to EBCE being a part of their territory. New NEM, so this is for folks that have installed a system after joining EBCE, and then our low income and municipal NEM service. So these are the three products that we have today. And we'll go to the next slide. And this is our proposed policy. So some changes that we'll see here. We have now the standard EBCE NEM customer. They are credited at retail. That's on an ongoing month-to-month basis for anything that they over-generate. They'll be receiving a bill credit at retail. That's the same as PG&E offers them today. Their annual payout, should they over-generate over the course of April to April, they'll receive that payout at net surplus compensation. Again, that's the same as PG&E. And this is for all of our original jurisdictions and our new jurisdictions, regardless of when the customer installed their system. For that particular process, I'll just make a note here that those customers do go through sort of a sweep or a catch-up sort of process at the very end of the cash out year in April, just to make sure that they're doing as well financially with their true-up as they would have with PG&E. Some changes here now. We also have the legacy municipal customer. So as you might remember from the previous slide, we had a low income and municipal special offering. So these customers today are the municipal accounts that already have, that are already receiving this special bill credit amount of retail plus a penny. They're just going to maintain that. We're kind of creating a legacy program for those customers and then closing it to new enrollments. We're then also, and here's where we really took into consideration a lot of the feedback from last month. We're going to have a CareFera EBCE NEM customer program. This is for those customers that are enrolled in the income qualified programs of CareFera and that have interconnected after we've started serving their jurisdiction. So those customers will receive their bill credits at the retail plus a penny, and then they'll just get paid out in that same amount. So that's a nice benefit for our low-income customers. If we go to the next slide. So here, the financial impact, we went through this a little bit last month. I'll highlight a new item here. So as we discussed last month, moving those accounts from the new NEM program to the standard EBCE NEM will save EBCE about $600,000 starting in 2022. And that's just based on our current, the current NEM customer base, which is only going to continue to grow. So we're seeing a savings of at least $600,000 starting in 2022, since this program will be in effect starting after today's cash out. That $600 completely dwarfs the small amount of money that we do need to pay to SMUD to get this policy updated, and then also to automate that NEM sweep true-up process that I mentioned. And if we go to the next slide. So this is just a complete description of all of the recommendations. So first we'll complete that NEM cash out under the current policy, as I mentioned. After that, cash out will move those new and existing NEM customers to the standard EBCE NEM policy. For those new NEM customers that are going to see a difference, we'll make sure that we're communicating this change to them, likely at the same time that they're getting any sort of NEM benefit in that April, May, June timeframe. We'll then be closing new enrollments to the municipal NEM offering. Those current municipal customers will continue to receive that benefit. It'll be a legacy program. And we do have other offerings for our municipal customers, new resiliency programs. And then just to make it really clear what the program is, we're just going to rename that low-income NEM program to CARE FARA EBCE NEM so that it's really clear what that offering is. And that's, again, for CARE and FARA customers that have interconnected their systems after EBCE launched in their community. And that is it.
Okay, thank you so much, Kelly. Appreciate that. Appreciate staff hearing and incorporating the feedback from our previous discussion. And first, we're gonna ask Mr. Clerk, are there any members of the public who have signed up in advance, or any members of the public who might want to raise their hand now on this item?
Yes, we have two speakers, Jessica Tovar and Vaughn. I am going to unmute. Hold on one second. I'm going to unmute Jessica Tovar now.
Hello, Jessica, East Bay Clean Power Alliance. As I mentioned before, if we're closing a program and there's funding, that we move that money that's been allocated for low-income people into another low-income program. And, you know, I just wonder if later you would offer net energy metering incentive, assuming that over time we get more rooftops in Alameda and Tracy with solar and folks who want to participate in a program like this. So just that's like a question. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, and I am unmuting Vaughn now.
Yeah, I just want to get this straight since I can't attend the thing tomorrow. For us existing NEM folks, the clock starts in April since Pleasanton starts in April. So I shouldn't be expecting anything for this last 3 months because my true up used to be in November. So correct me if I'm wrong, but the clock starts in April and it comes around. Also, what's completely off subject maybe, but I'm sure you guys have things to do with that 600,000. I would suggest you start putting solar on the poorer income, lower income people's homes. That's just my 2 cents, or for long-term storage in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, Kelly, is there any comment or to any of the two public speakers that you might have?
Yeah, sure. For the first public speaker, we are not closing, we're not removing the low income program. We're just renaming it to CareFera. So that will be extended, and it will be open to any new NEM interconnections in our existing and our brand new communities as well. And so maybe there was a miscommunication there. I apologize. For the second speaker, I do encourage you to check out the recording of the webinar that we're recording tomorrow, but I'll just address your question really quickly. You will be enrolling in April, and you'll see at that time that you'll do a true up with PG&E at that time, and then you'll start on EBCE service. And so you'll have a new true up date with PG&E. So you'll have your delivery true up with PG&E every April, and then you'll have your cash out if you overgenerate with EBCE in April as well.
Oops, okay, thank you very much. And let's see, colleagues, any comments or questions from board members? I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I'm happy to entertain a motion. This is an action item. Happy to entertain any motion to adopt the staff recommendation today.
I'll move.
That's Councilmember Kick.
I'll second.
I don't know who was first. I'll say Councilmember Narum.
Thank you.
Is a second on that, and seeing no other hands raised, we can call the roll.
Yes. Alameda County. Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley. Dublin. Fremont.
Yes. There's a message from Dublin in the chat box.
Dublin votes yes. Is that to our legal counsel? Is that allowable as a official vote?
I don't think it will be necessary to pass this item. So luckily, we're not put to the test.
Dublin votes yes. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. There we go.
Verbal vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Hayward.
Aye.
Livermore.
Yes.
Newark.
Aye.
Piedmont. Pleasanton.
Yes.
San Leandro.
Aye.
Tracy.
Yes.
Union City.
Aye.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
The measure passes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it very much. So now we'll move to item 16. This is an informational item dealing with supplier diversity overview and the CPUC requirements. Who's presenting on this?
That will be me, Vanessa Gerber, in Strategic Operations. As Adrian gets the slide pulled up, yeah, just to reiterate, this is an informational item. This is the first year that CCAs and therefore EBCE were required to submit a supplier diversity report to the CPUC. So we wanted to bring this to the board. We also discussed it with a CAC on Monday, providing an overview of the CPUC requirement program, an overview of our 2020 report, as well as some pretty significant challenges that the CCAs faced and continue to face in the context of supplier diversity, but how we're working as innovatively as we can to still move forward the purpose of the program. So we'll move to the next slide, please, Adrian. Great. So as an overview, I wanted to provide a bit of history on the program. The Supplier Diversity Program from the Cpuc comes out of General Order 156, which was originally passed in 1988. The purpose that remains the same today is all about increasing procurements by utilities from diverse suppliers. And so a couple things there, the utilities that started, when this was first passed in 88, for all of the utility categories regulated by the PUC. So not only the electric utilities, but also water and telecom, that continues today. And it was for larger utilities. And when they say diverse suppliers, that specifically is defined as women-owned, minority-owned, disabled veteran-owned, and/or LGBT-owned business entities that are also certified in the Supplier Clearinghouse. So the PUC runs a statewide clearinghouse as basically a directory of these diverse suppliers, and they span all sorts of goods and services. The intent really being there are accumulative billions of dollars across the state by all these utilities being spent, and many of them can and do intentionally procure from diverse suppliers. And so that clearinghouse and this program being a way to further that. So the requirement of GO 156 is twofold. So there's a backward-looking annual report regarding procurement from the diverse suppliers. If you look into the report or the general order, it's bundled up as the acronym WMDV LGBTBE. So as the report comes out on the PUC website, you will see that it stands for all of the different classifications of diverse suppliers, as well as a forward-looking annual plan to achieve the program purpose. So for the report that we submitted on March 1st, that was looking at our 2020 calendar year activities and procurement and our plans for 2021. So as this pertains to expansion to CCAs, Senate Bill 255, which passed in 2019, expands the order to a number of additional entities, which explicitly also includes CCAs. And the language around CCAs also calls out small and local business enterprises, as well as diverse. And I underline that and kind of emphasize that relative to a challenge we face as a public agency in California, relative to Prop 209, which I'll discuss on a following slide. And otherwise, the requirement is effectively the same and the purpose is the same. There are just some challenges and some restrictions that we as a CCA, as a public agency in California face relative to goal setting and expressing preference, which we are explicitly prohibited from doing under Prop 209. So why don't we transition to the next slide and discuss that a bit further, please? Thank you. So Prop 209, as you are probably very aware, passed in 96. It's more commonly known by its effect on ending affirmative action. It was on the ballot, and the opportunity for the state to reverse it was on the ballot in November under Prop 16. That did not pass. So as public elected officials, I'm sure you're all very aware, but especially also for the public's awareness, what this means for EBC as a public agency is that we are explicitly prohibited from considering race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in our public contracting, employment, or education. And the reason it's so important for supplier diversity is it's all about our public contracting. So we are not able to consider these factors in our selection of the businesses that we work with. So we want to make sure that is very clear in kind of context setting for what we are able to report on, the activities that we can and do plan to engage on for supplier diversity. So, given the restrictions, there are impacts both on the eligible reporting sections in GO 156, as well as our actual activities, and kind of how that translates into the total spend numbers that were included in the report. So for those reporting sections, there are a number that are not applicable, and those have to do with goal and target setting. We're not allowed to do this, and so there are a number of sections that are just not included in CCA reports, as well as the actual content of the report, our activities and the numbers. And so one thing that's important to take out is that our results are the dollars we spent as an agency with certified diverse suppliers are not that large, and that is the product of two main factors. One is Prop 209, and the other is that over 98% of our procurement specifically in calendar year 2020, but on average, in any calendar year, is on power procurement. And no surprise that there are fewer total suppliers as well as very few diverse suppliers in that space. And so, we're really kind of pushed to this 2% remainder of our procurement of other goods and services that might happen to also be from diverse suppliers. And so it's just an important landscape of our procurement relative to especially the IOUs, which we obviously are often compared to. That's just quite different. And so, we make that very clear in the report and still work with this reality and being able to do what we can to promote the objective of the program and invest locally in our small and local businesses. So if we can move to the next slide, please, Adrian. Great. So despite some of the, restrictions, as frustrating as they may be imposed by Prop 209, the process did open up some opportunities for further, additional avenues of CCA collaboration. From a technical perspective, staff engaged in an ad hoc CCA working group to make sure that we are aligned on the reporting requirements, as well as language regarding the Prop 209 restrictions. But from a more programmatic perspective, definitely identified potential opportunities for multi-CCA outreach and education efforts on Go 156 for the contractor ecosystem, that does and may serve many CCAs. And, being what is the supplier diversity program? What is the clearinghouse? How do you get certified and offering support in that certification process? We'll move to the next slide, please. Great. So, what was actually in the 2020 report? I don't have a timeline on when that is published on the Cpuc website, but all reports will be. Our total procurement spend with certified vendors in calendar year 2020 was just over $300,000, which is not much in the context of the 400 million that we spent. Again, 98% of that was on power procurement. But this was across seven different suppliers. 3 are local Alameda County businesses. 3 are other Bay Area counties, and the last one's Santa Cruz County. So all still relatively local, including those 3 that are local to our service territory. And again, this is ultimately the product of coincidence, because we, as per Prop 209, are not choosing them because of their certification status, but because they're a local business, small business. They won the RFP as the best bidder. And so what can we do to further support these businesses still within the bounds of Prop 209? We highlighted the activities that we took in 2020, that being Cca Collaboration, which I referenced on the last slide. In our solicitation language, so power solicitations and otherwise all goods and services, adding language to solicitations that describes Go 156 and a reporting requirement. This is a permanent installment now going forward. So that's one layer of awareness. Our local purchasing, obviously, we highlighted our clear commitment to supporting local businesses to the greatest degree that we can. On a similar note, labor and workforce development, highlighting, our union and local labor preferences, as well as growing workforce development partnerships and opportunities. We also highlighted our community grants and scholarships, which includes our Community Innovation Grant, local sponsorships, as well as our COVID-19 relief grants that we made in 2020. And then our supplier diversity questionnaire. So as one of the ways, especially in this first year, for us to gather some more data from our vendors and contractors was to send a questionnaire. And this will be an ongoing thing. But I also raised this outside of just the required information that we wanted to get. We also, in collaboration with JP and his team, worked on adding some more questions about local job and workforce development opportunities. And so kind of working through those results now to see how we might build some more opportunities for programming in this year going forward. And the final is certification support to small and diverse businesses. So, whether they're one of our contractors or not, if they see in our material that about Go 156 and are interested in pursuing certification or would like some assistance in the process, we were open to offering that. And it's pretty simple and it's a free process, but obviously, some businesses are quite small and need some additional bandwidth. So that's an offer that we have open. We'll move to the next slide, which is penultimate slide here, so almost done. Relative to the annual plan, again, it's all about finding an innovative way to progress the purpose of the program while staying within the bounds of Prop 209. So a lot of the initiatives, they're on the left side, are continued efforts, but there are also a couple of new or expanded efforts. So I'll point the direction to the right side of this slide. Those three items specifically are diversified outreach. So that's really working to expand our solicitation list to actively include affinity groups and chambers of commerce to ensure that there's wider awareness of our contracting, solicitation, and procurement opportunities. And that's something we, definitely look to board members. If you have specific groups to direct us towards, please definitely send them our way. But we will also be doing an active exercise to build that list out. Relative to certified subcontractor identification support. So this is an idea that we're still kind of exploring specifically what it might look like, but what it would be is for our existing contractors, should they need subcontractors to execute their work for their contract with EBCE. If they are interested, we can help them basically parse through the supplier clearinghouse to identify some potential leads for those subcontractors. No reward or punishment for pursuing this. This is just that if you would like to, this is an option. And so still TBD on exactly what that looks like, but something that we are exploring. And the last is Cca Collaboration. So I touched on this a little bit earlier, but want to specifically call out MCE does an annual workshop that they've actually done for a couple of years now. Obviously, they have a leg up on everyone for just being a number of years ahead of us in terms of operations. So they've opened the opportunity to participate in their Certify and Amplify workshop, which is basically, pulling together contractors from across the area and the state and learning more about Go 156, the opportunities through being certified, and also that offering kind of day of certification workshops to help folks get through that process. So that wraps up, the highlights for the annual plan. And then I just have one last slide to just, highlight, specifically call out that, we obviously commit to and prioritize local spend as much as we can. And so we will be bringing some more detail and ideas around local spend, some more data as well to the board in the coming months as we discuss the budget. So I just wanted to make that flag because obviously that's a big component of this in terms of what we can do. So that's it for my update overview. Very happy to answer any questions or hear any ideas you might have.
Thank you so much. Thank you for putting all that together and for the presentation. Let's first go to our public speakers, if any. Mr. Clerk, do we have any speakers on this item?
Yes, we have Jessica Tovar. Jessica Tovar, I am unmuting you now.
Thank you very much, Jessica, for East Bay Clean Power Alliance. And I wanted to just acknowledge thank you to Callie, who clarified from the earlier item. I don't know if she left already, but wanted to say that. I wanted to just say, well, first of all, as somebody who fought Prop 209, I really see the value in giving opportunities to people who, you know, are able to do the work and more than willing. And I think we really want to emphasize, you know, that the SLEB, small, emerging, local and emerging businesses, minority-owned business, diversity, and is very important. We thought about this for a while, and we were wondering if inclusion of zip codes within Alameda County and Tracy, communities that might need, you know, the work, if there's a way to include that, so that we're giving opportunities to people in the communities that, you know, are maybe underemployed, unemployed, have high unemployment, to be able to emphasize giving those opportunities to those communities as we hire locally and move forward in that way. So that was one of the ideas that we wanted to suggest. Thank you so much for that presentation.
Thank you, Jessica. And let's see, I see no other public speakers for this item. And so we'll bring it back to the panel, to the board. Colleagues, any questions or comments on this informational item? I am seeing none. I see a birthday cake or some kind of piece of cake, or what is that? What is that, Vice Chair Martinez? I'm looking here.
It's a piece of outsider art.
Oh, excellent. Okay, well, thank you so much. Okay, I'm not, oh, I do see a question, a comment from Councilmember Cac.
Just saying, I really appreciate this this work. I understand that there are a lot of barriers we're going to have to get around. And so I think being creative is really important for us as we focus on serving our communities who need our support the most. So thank you for being creative and helping us to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, to staff for putting that together and sharing that with us. Obviously, if there are any follow-up questions, people are always welcome to contact the appropriate staff person offline. And we're going to go on to our next item as soon as I could find it. Excuse me. Okay, at item 17, this is a informational item on the overview of the SMUD Energy Help Plan, program and connected communities. And this is Annie and JP.
Thanks very much. I think Annie will be presenting as well. And then Samantha Weaver is also going to be coming in and presenting on a little bit of the slides as well. So thanks very much. This is an item that we wanted to come to you with after some conversations at the board around our most impacted customers and some programs we might offer that some other utilities like SMUD have offered. And we wanted to come and give you a report out on some of those programs as well as some of our activities. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Let's see, Annie, do you want to take this one or do you want me to take this one? Sorry.
No, I'm happy to go over it.
Okay.
So a lot of the information that I'll be touching on was presented to the executive committee at our last meeting when we did present information particular to the SMUD Energy Helps program, and then sort of a brief overview of the connected communities. So I'll touch on more of the sort of initial work that we did around care enrollment, and then speak to the SMUD Energy Helps, and then JP is going to do a slightly deeper dive onto the connected communities. So first is just a little bit of background on how the disconnections work. There is something called Rule 11, which outlines all of the requirements by which PG&E must attempt to do outreach, must offer payment plan options, and a number of other things before they can ever disconnect someone for non-payment. Those efforts from PG&E around the disconnections have all been put on hold for about a year. Recently, that was extended until July 1st. Our expectation right now is that the July 1st date is going to stand. There is a lot of movement happening in terms of the planning. What are we going to, the PUC is very interested in what are we going to do, because there are a large number of people who are in arrears. Clearly, it can't just, the answer cannot just be to disconnect all of these people. So they are working on things like the Arrearage Management Plan program, as well as a number of other transitional plans that, that were recently presented to the Low Income Oversight Board by PG&E. Could we go to the next slide, Adrian? So what does PG&E's efforts around disconnection, the outreach, and the payment plans, what does that have to do with EBCE? Well, we can't actually disconnect a customer, but we can send them back to PG&E, and in essence, they are then queued up for the same treatment. But even without us sending a customer back to PG&E, if they are in arrears with PG&E for a certain amount of money, PG&E can cut them off, even if they don't owe EBCE anything. We have for the last year, and we intend to extend this to match the July 1 date, we have not been sending any customers to collection or sending them back to PG&E, so that hopefully they don't become even more in debt. You know, our debt sort of stays with us and doesn't accrue to the PG&E side. But as I said, we haven't been doing that. We can forgive customer debt, of course, if that's something that, you know, the board approves and gives direction on, but it doesn't actually prevent a customer from being disconnected. So there's utility debt relief from EBCE, and then there's disconnection. And so even with no debt to EBCE, a customer can still be disconnected because they owe PG&E money, and PG&E is in control of that mechanism. We did increase our uncollectible debt budget by about 4 times, from 2.4 million to now nearly 10 million, due to our forecast in uncollectible debt. We go to the next slide. So it had come up, in fact, Jessica Tovar had mentioned in the past couple meetings, this SMUD Energy Help program. So I wanted to I brought this to the executive committee, and they asked that we bring this to the full board. I wanted to provide a quick summary of what this program is. And I just sort of as a top level comment, it is not direct debt relief for customers from SMUD direct to the customers. It's in essence a donation from those voluntary participating SMUD customers who donate maybe $1 every bill or $10 every bill. And then that fund of money is distributed to charity partners who are providing various social services, some of them focused on utilities, other of them focused on food security and other social services. So SMUD has been running this for about 17 years. According to their website, they have about 14,000 customers that are participating, and they've helped about 37,000 households. I think one of the major differences I want to make clear between us and SMUD, SMUD controls the disconnect. They're like PG&E, so they do both poles and wires and generation service for their customers, so they can sort of have a more direct correlation between debt relief and disconnects. And that, of course, is not our position in the landscape of EBCE and PG&E. And I just wanted to also note that we haven't set up this kind of individual customer donation system. But we did, of course, over the last year, contribute over 1.3 million in grants to local community-based organizations to help with COVID-related issues for our local communities. And with that, I'll turn it over to JP to cover the next couple slides.
Great. Thanks, Annie. Thanks, Adrian, for moving to the next slide. So we wanted to share with you all some of our activities. We've mentioned this program, talked about it at our board retreat earlier this month, and wanted to go more into detail on this Connected Communities program. So the goal here, and we actually started this effort prior to COVID-19 and the recent challenges that our customers have been facing. And this was spurred by some work that Samantha was doing prior to her departure on maternity leave a while ago, and have been working with Febby a lot and a wide part of our team, because we have had some zip codes with some of the highest disconnection rates in the state. Some zip codes where disconnection rates can be above 10 to 15% of accounts that are either being disconnected or that are being disconnected. So this has been something we've been working on for a while now. And what we really wanted to do was look at our customers who are challenged paying their bills and in arrearage and having potential and getting disconnected, and then evaluate what types of interventions we may do to assist those customers in paying their bills and not getting disconnected. And so we wanted to use some data-driven approaches to understanding who might be disconnected, as well as thinking about testing interventions and really looking at the results of those and seeing are these programs actually resulting in lower arrearages and lower disconnections. And some of that work got kind of halted or at least diverted during COVID-19 and the disconnection ban that has happened. But we've still been pursuing and progressing the program, and new programs like the arrearage management plan have come into place and are things that we are looking at rolling into this kind of broad rubric of connected communities. So if we go to the next slide, please. So one thing that we did was we spent a good amount of time looking at our existing CARE and FARA customers. So CARE is a 30% discount on the total bill. It's an income qualified program. And we have about 100,000 of our residential accounts are currently on CARE. So it's about 20% of our accounts are on CARE. And so we spent some time, Diego and our data analytics team, looking at what the impact of CARE is to arrearages and disconnections. And some of our findings were fairly interesting, which is that even though CARE is providing a discount of $30 to $40 a month, arrearage amounts for those customers who were in arrears is reduced by a much smaller amount, about $3. And then when we looked at disconnection rates, we saw a very small reduction in disconnections for customers on CARE. Now, this doesn't mean that CARE isn't doing anything. And later on, I'll talk about some of our focus groups and some of our findings from that. But customers who are challenged paying their utility bills are often challenged paying all their bills. And so CARE, this discount could be going to paying other bills. That's something we're looking at exploring. But with the EBCE utility bill specifically, we did notice that that discount is not necessarily going to paying down their utility bill. But that's one thing that we looked at. If we go to the next slide, please. And frankly, we've done a lot of work to try to continue enrolling customers in CARE because it is a strong program. Annie, you want to talk on this one or you want me to do it?
Yep, I'll jump in. So this was something that our marketing group led. In fact, Febby led before moving over to the regulatory team. And so back in August of 2019, we wanted to do a customer outreach program. And rather than going out to encourage folks to opt up, we wanted to try and increase the percentage of eligible participants in Care and Farah because it is a substantial discount. And we saw that there were just additional benefits to that. So we ran a solicitation for a community outreach partners, and our hope was to basically increase the amount of enrollment in Care and Farah. Through the competitive solicitation, we selected 2 local nonprofits, Spectrum Community Services. They're out of Hayward. Hopefully you are familiar with them. They do a lot of really great work for low-income households as well as the elderly. They do Meals on Wheels, low-income weatherization, and the HEAP program. And then Interfaith Power and Light. They are a statewide, and in fact, national organization, but they're headquartered for California here in Oakland. And they have about 50 congregations within our service territory that of all different faiths that are committed to addressing climate change. So great network of a diverse group of folks to be able to get the word out about Care and Farah too. So we gave $10,000 to each organization with the goal of 500 enrollments. This was based on, there is an existing community outreach contractor or coordinator program that PG&E does. So using CBOs to try and get folks opted into Care and Farah, but they only pay after the fact. It's about $20 per enrollment. We knew that that was really difficult for nonprofits to go out and do work in hopes of converting. So we said, well, let's pilot this, let's try it out, let's give them the money up front and see what kind of traction we can get. Unfortunately, by the time we ran the solicitation, did some training, got everything really up and moving, it was February 2020, and all of the great things that they had just started or were planning to do the next month all got shut down. So it was a lot of in-person. For Spectrum, they have a lot of people who come into their office to apply for LIHEAP and other programs. So they were sort of just letting those people know about Care and Farah. They also go out and they do a lot of like community center and senior center outreach. So a lot of one-on-one interactions, presentations, tablings, and so forth. Interfaith Power and Light was doing the same, and we unfortunately just had to pretty much shut it all down. But before then, we started to at least get some of the sort of basic framework set up. So we did connect with the appropriate person at PG&E to try and trace the impacts of the work we were doing and see, okay, is this person getting properly through the application process and showing up as enrolled in Care and Farah? That presented a lot of problems and was definitely a lesson learned. We found that a lot of people who we were talking with were already on Care, which is great, but we were trying to reach that population that was eligible and not yet enrolled, and it took a little bit longer than we had anticipated to ramp up. But this is something that we did put on, we completed what we could under this grant agreement, but we didn't re-engage in this for another round of funding because we were in the middle of the pandemic. As things start to hopefully improve across our counties, it's possible we can go back and continue this work as well, because we are doing a lot of digital outreach, but I think this direct, one-on-one and personal interactions could be very effective way to get more people on Care and Farah. And I'll turn it back to JP to talk about those various other things we're doing.
Thanks, Annie. Yeah, next slide, please. So in addition to looking at Care and doing Care outreach as an effective tool for reducing arrearage and disconnection, we've also spent a good bit of time now actually trying to build a propensity model for disconnection. So, as you know, we have a lot of data and we've got a great team who is, really versed in building models and using those models to help us implement all sorts of things, energy forecasting and program modeling. And in this case, we took all of our customers and the arrearage history and disconnection history, as well as a lot of other data we have, like household income level data at the census level, and built a model to try to predict, who who would face arrearage and disconnection. And then we've actually started to try to use that model on some care outreach activities, so that we been having SMUD use that model or we've used the model to give lists to SMUD to actually do proactive outbound outreach to try to get people to enlist in care. And we can learn from some of what Annie learned from, which is that a lot of the customers are already in care, and the contacts that we give to SMUD are, not in care already. So we're trying to kind of learn from those programs and then try new ways to help our customers. We have found that the propensity model is not fantastic. We call a lot of people who end up not being eligible for care, and it's also quite expensive. But that's an example of how we're trying to use, the programs and the models and tools we're building to implement programs. We are now continuing to invest in this propensity model. We know that, especially if the disconnection ban comes off, we're going to have a slew of potential disconnections. And so, trying to build and refine that model is something that we're doing now, and we're trying to put more data into it. So one of the lacking elements was a view or detail on household level income. And so, barring that, we're trying to put other pieces of information into the model. So one example is we have now records of all 1.2 million vehicles that are registered in Alameda County. We have run basically a little bot over Kelly Blue Book, which has a valuation tool to extract a valuation on all those vehicles. And now we're kind of adding that at the household level to see if that helps to refine the model. And ultimately, we'd want a good model to inform program activities so that we can target our outreach to those customers who need it most. Next slide, please. So the other thing that we really wanted to do, is talk to our customers. So we have been putting together focus groups, and we've been doing that actually in 4 languages. We've been trying to get a Vietnamese language, a Tagalog group for a couple of months now, and having a really hard time getting folks enrolled, and our consultants just today informed us that they had that group successfully. They held it last night in Tagalog, which is awesome. So we have 9 focus groups now in 4 different languages that's specifically been talking to customers who have had arrearages or disconnections, and understanding what their challenges are and running them through potential solutions and programs that we might offer to them to see if those would help. We thought it was extremely important to actually talk with folks who are facing this on a daily basis and understand how things we might be able to do can help them. And so some of that is existing programs that we have, like our low income energy efficiency program, and then also potential new interventions that we might test, and a couple programs that are up and coming that can provide bill discounts to customers. It's not a mystery. People who are not paying their bills have a hard time paying their bills. They don't necessarily have enough in their bank account to pay all the bills that they face in a particular month. And some of the feedback that we're getting from these focus groups is incredibly important around bill payment timing. So people are saying that they might have money in their account, but it's just not at the time when they need to pay their bill. And things like auto payment, which we think of as a way to help people pay their bills, can actually be challenging and stressful, because if those auto payments are made at a time when a customer doesn't have enough money in their account, then they go through this cascading issue of charges from their bank and potentially their bank account being frozen, and there's a lot of angst. And so how can we help customers pay their bills and have a process that makes it easy for them when they're constantly juggling not only their electricity and utility bills, but all the bills they pay on a month. So these lessons are hugely valuable. The focus groups have been great, and we're taking the lessons from these and thinking about how we can use them to best help help these folks. Next slide, please. And I'm going to pass it to Samantha now. And I think most of you know Samantha, who was with our regulatory team, and she's now come over to our programs team to manage our connected communities work. And so we're going to talk about a couple of the interventions that we're looking at that can provide discounts to customers who could benefit from those. So Sam's going to take the next 2 slides.
Thanks, JP. So we're getting to the end here. I've got 3 slides for you that are all about the 3 remaining key components of the Connected Communities program. And I'll note that each of these leverages existing CPUC programs. So first up is the Disadvantaged Communities and Community Solar Green Tariff Program. Again, this is a CPUC program. It allows CARE and FARA eligible customers who live in disadvantaged communities to receive 100% solar at a 20% discount on their total bill. And that's on top of the CARE and FARA or CARE or FARA discount they may already be receiving. This was sort of conceived of by the CPUC as a solar for all program. So you don't need to own a home to enroll in this program. You don't need to have a rooftop that can support solar. EBCE has submitted an implementation advice letter to the CPUC in order to become a program administrator. As part of that regulatory process, we've been allocated almost 6 megawatts for the Disadvantaged Communities program and 1.6 megawatts for the Community Solar Green Tariff program. And that's enough to provide discounts for a little over 2,000 EBCE customer accounts. So, there are 2 programs here, the DAC program, the Community Solar program. They each have their own set of eligibility rules and criteria. I think the key thing to remember is that the main difference between the 2 is that the Community Solar program requires a community sponsor that's meant to help with outreach and enrollment in partnership with EBCE. And it will result in a project that's within 5 miles of the community it serves. So it's sort of a narrow geographic focus. So community solar versus the DAC Green Tariff program requires that both the customer and the solar project be in a disadvantaged community, but not necessarily the same disadvantaged community. EBCE and other program administrators have been permitted to automatically enroll customers into that DAC program because, as I said, it is a little bit less restrictive. We do plan to pursue that option because it'll help us just get this program and the discount out to customers more quickly. It's also important to note that the program costs for this, because it is a PUC program, are recoverable through public purpose funds and greenhouse gas mitigation funds. And last but not least, we also wanted to point out that this program also allows for the DAC Green Tariff program only the use of interim resources, meaning interim until our solar projects come online, as sort of a backstop so that we can enroll customers sooner. So we can contract with an existing solar plant as long as it meets the requirements of the program and enroll customers sooner rather than later. The sort of real world implication of that is that the DAC program will probably be implemented sooner than the community solar program, just given the various rules around implementation. So this is a pretty complex program. I'm happy to answer questions about it. And there's a lot more detail we can go into. But I'll move on to the next slide. So program 2 of the 3, this is another PUC program. I think Annie mentioned this at the very beginning. This is new. It's an arrearage management program. And I believe this is a pilot at the PUC. And the thing to know about this is it's a debt forgiveness program. It provides customers with debt forgiveness if they pay their current bills over the course of a year. And so it sort of takes a customer's total arrearage and divides it into 12 increments. For each month that they pay their current bill, 1/12 of their arrearage is forgiven, up to $8,000. PG&E has started enrolling customers in this program. So similarly to CARE, this is a program where PG&E does the enrollment, EBCE does not. Right now, there have been over 300 EBCE customers enrolled out of about 14,000 who are eligible. EBCE is developing an outreach plan for education and enrollment around this. As I said, it is new, but it's something we certainly want to make sure customers are aware of. And then also as part of the collaboration with UC Berkeley that JP referenced earlier, we plan to evaluate the impact of this program because again, it is a pilot, so we'll want to make sure to get some lessons learned. Next slide, please. And last but not least, we have also entered into a partnership with Grid Alternatives. And this is a program that is really geared toward low-income homeowners. And it leverages the CPUC's Single Family Affordable Solar Homes program. And the program there offers an incentive to install rooftop solar. What we're doing is providing gap funding to fund the gap between that incentive and the total cost of the system so customers can get it for free. And we are also planning to cover the cost of any service panel upgrades that are required, which can be pretty prohibitive. So we're co-marketing this program with Grid. And I think the last thing I'll just say about this is I think this really exemplifies kind of the core purpose of the Connected Communities program, which is to leverage staff time, access to data and information to get hard to reach customers enrolled in some of these existing programs, and especially in partnership with community-based organizations like Grid Alternatives. And I think that's it for me. So I'll turn it back over to JP to wrap up.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Sam. Next slide, please. So we've talked about some of the interventions and options that will help reduce customers' bills. And then there are also kind of non-discount opportunities to test, and some of them have to do with education, information, or flexibility around bill payment. So there's other things that we are looking to test and extract learnings from our focus groups to really hone in on one or two of these that we can roll out over the coming months. So last slide. So in conclusion, we wanted to share with the board what we've been doing. What some other utilities like SMUD have offered their customers, and as mentioned, we've done a bit of grants to local CBOs that are providing assistance to our communities with COVID. And then we have a suite of activities through our Connected Communities work, which is very much focused on our most vulnerable customers and taking COVID into account and non-COVID times into account. This is something that we're invested heavily in and wanted to make you all aware of it. And that's it for us. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you to our staff team that presented this, a lot of information. And I'm looking for questions and comments. Yes, first Councilmember Lopez and then Councilmember Cumagay.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for this comprehensive presentation of the various programs. I find that the SMUD Energy Help Summary, or the SMUD Energy Help Program is quite interesting. I see that it's quite mature as well, and so I'm sure they've been able to work out a lot of the kinks. Additionally, it's within one jurisdiction, which is not necessarily apples to apples here with what we're doing in our service area. But all those things being said, I think it would be interesting to potentially look at something like this here and see if there is a way for our customers to be able to donate monies to local charities and nonprofits in the service area, either by jurisdiction or regionally. I think that people want to help each other. I think, what I have found in COVID is there's been a lot of challenges, but there's also, on the other hand, been a lot of people that have wanted to help those that have been especially challenged. And so if there's some interest by the board, I would, later on, want to agendize this for a future conversation to see if this is something we may want to consider implementing or perhaps piloting here with EBCE. Thank you.
Thank you, Karina. Sean, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Kalp. I just wanted to bring up that SB 91 rent relief program just rolled out, and that's going to be hitting Alameda County soon. They're administering that program for Alameda County. And that has a utility arrearage component to it for enrollees. It is based off of the availability of funding. So I don't want to say first come, first serve, but once the funding does get exhausted, the program will cease. So we may consider figuring out a way to push that information out as well to those who are in arrearage, because that's free money on the table for up to a year of utilities for those who are enrolled. So.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Let's see, next is Vice Chair Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the staff report. It looks like we have a broad array of activities from the agency in response to people feeling in crisis due to COVID-19. And since the executive committee meeting, it has really sunk in for me that well, even if we were to forgive people's debts, that doesn't stop them from being disconnected from PG&E nor owing them money. So regarding the staff report, I appreciate that staff is keeping track of PGE's COVID-19 Emergency Customer Protections Transition Plan, and that they are making comments on the CPUC's order instituting rulemaking to address energy utility customer bill debt accumulated during the COVID-19 pandemic. That was a lot that I had to write down. But I'm hoping that we can get updates on that in the future, because I would like to see where this CPUC rulemaking comes down on this very specific issue that is going to affect so many of our ratepayers here in Alameda County, and so many all at once. So I hope that staff does include informational reports on what happens with this process. Thank you.
Thank you. That's Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to staff for this report. It was extremely comprehensive and I learned a lot. So thank you for providing this information to the public. I just want to encourage us to make sure that all of this information is on our website and easily available for individuals to take advantage. And I'm familiar with the programs that were mentioned, but another one that I'm sorry if I missed it, but I didn't hear it being mentioned is the REACH program. I know it's something that individuals are able to receive. I believe it's $300 every 12 months. I know specifically in Hayward, South Hayward Parish has the contract to assist with that. But just, you know, having that information also available is crucial so that people take full advantage of all the different services that are available. So if we could just make sure to add that, and if we could please add a specific tab under the residents section to our website so people can have direct numbers to these different programs to apply. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see, Councilmember Hannan.
Yes, staff, thank you for the excellent report. It's really important that we local cities partner with you in making sure that we get this important information out to our residents. Certainly, many of our residents simply don't know who to call or how to address a situation. So it's incumbent upon us as leaders in our respective cities to make sure that we partner with you to get that information out to our community. Do you have the information regarding arrearage as it relates to each specific city, so we can understand kind of the magnitude of the problem as we move forward? And if so, could you share that information with us? Thank you.
We do have, sorry, Chair, can I respond?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we do have the arrearage amount owed to EBCE by all of our customers. And then we are getting from PG&E the list of accounts that are eligible for the arrearage management program. But for those accounts, we can only look at the EBCE arrearage amount, which is, you know, basically half of the electricity bill, because it doesn't include gas. And so it's a bit of an estimate for us. We have requested that data from PG&E because we want to know the full amount of debt forgiveness for our outreach plans, because we don't want to tell them like you can get $300 when they could actually get $1,000. And so we've requested that from PG&E. Don't know if we'll get it, but I think what we can provide to the cities is a list of the AMP eligible customers by city, and then we've also done some arrearage work, assessing arrearage with us in our 30, 60, 90 day kind of arrearage. And of course that'll have to be, that's for you, but it's for your customers. So if there's any 15-15 rule that we would preclude us or make us, we'd have to abide by that as far as the data sharing goes.
And Mr. Chair, if I may follow up, and I absolutely agree with that. I think it just helps us cities to understand the magnitude of the problem as we move forward. Are we in that situation where it maybe represents 2% of our residents versus 15% of our residents? Because we need to ratchet up whatever that marketing effort may be, depending upon the number of our residents that are impacted. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, let's see here. I'm not seeing any more hands raised. Mr. Clerk, can we call any, do we have any public speakers on this item?
Yes, we have two, Jada Dogon and Jessica Tovar. I am going to unmute Jada now. Hold on 1 second.
Welcome.
Thanks, Adrian. Hi, Jada Durmaz-Dogan with Local Clean Energy Alliance. I know that you're informing the board and public about SMUT's Energy Help Program because there was a request, and thanks for sharing that information. But has the EBC staff looked into what other community choice agencies have been doing to help their customers? I already mentioned Peninsula Clean Energy's bill relief credit at the previous EBC meetings, but I will mention it again here. Peninsula Clean Energy offered a bill relief credit of $100 to its care and para customers in March 2020. We heard that it was very effective because customers didn't need to submit an application. They automatically got the credit in their bills, and the program had very little administrative cost to Peninsula Clean Energy. I hope EBC will consider offering a similar bill relief credit to its care and para customers, especially for those who enroll in CPUC's AMP program, because we all know that the AMP program has its shortcomings. First, the program requires people to pay their bills, even though those same people are eligible because they were not able to pay their bills in the first place. So we're making this assumption that everything went back to normal and people now somehow can manage to pay their bills. So the other problem is like customers who will miss 2 consecutive monthly payments, and I think 3 non-consecutive monthly payments will be removed from the program. So a bill relief credit could help more EBC customers benefit from the statewide debt forgiveness program. And by doing that, I think it could also help EBC recover some of the debt through CPUC's AMP program. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am unmuting Jessica Tovar.
Hello, Jessica Tovar, East Bay Clean Power Alliance. Thank you so much for listening to us and for this presentation. One thing that I wanted to highlight was maybe it'd be good to update the website to include the LIHEAP program, which is also a help. It's like a one-time payment for people who have accrued debt. That is not on the East Bay Community Energy website. I also think right now is a good time to front and center on the EBCE website, add a direct link. Are you struggling or behind on bills? Click here. These are programs that exist that could help you, so that people can access those. And what I want to appreciate too is that on your website, you do offer information in various languages. So I think that's very important. I think that's a simple task that could help a lot of people. So one thing I also want to highlight, is that community choice is better than PG&E, because all PG&E does is take people's money, and if they don't have money, they shut their power off. So I do think it's really important for community choice as a local public, service to Alameda County, City of Tracy, to find where there's gaps that they could actually help their customers, not only in this difficult time of COVID, but moving forward and having an instituted program that'll help people who are struggling with bills. So I do think having, a more formal program that regularly gives nonprofits the money that they need to be able to facilitate enrolling people into these different programs. And the idea of creating a fund where people could give more money to help their neighbors who are struggling. I'll call it a mutual aid fund for lack of other term. The idea of rounding up your bill, I don't know if it can be done because we do get a PG&E bill, but I think that there are ways that we can get creative with that. And also on top of soliciting funds from, other customers who want to help their neighbors, actually money from East Bay Community Energy to help add to this money that's well needed to address this issue. And most importantly, the intent is to retain community choice customers. Just because people are struggling to pay their bill, are low income, maybe lost their job, doesn't mean that they should be sent back to PG&E. So in any which way that you have control of the situation or can intervene is very well needed at this time and moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see, I believe those are all the public commenters. And colleagues, I see no more questions, any more hands raised or to be raised? Seeing none, this is an informational item. Is that correct? To JP? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to move on, and I believe that is the last substantive item of our agenda, unless I'm missing something here. So next are any announcements or comments for the good of the world, good of the county plus Tracy. If anybody has any announcements to make of relevance or interest to all of us or and our members, I see Councilmember Lopez.
Correct. Thank you very much. I also see here under agenda item 18 that I can also place a request. Should I wait for that, or are you calling for that as well?
We can do that now as well, sure.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much. So I'd like to place an agenda, an item on a future board agenda to explore the possibility of implementing a pilot or program similar to the SMUD Energy Help Program. And I'm not going to put a date certain because I'll just leave that time frame to staff. I know there's a lot of other things sort of in the hopper, so to speak, but I would hope that it would be, within the next, 6 to 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you. And please, I would just ask, please follow up with any email to staff or any further discussion so they have clarity on what you like agendized. And I'm sure the staff will work with you to make that happen. Okay. Any other announcements? Seeing none here. I think it's very appropriate that we, a green energy agency, had a meeting on this March 17th date. So thank you to one and all. And thank you. It is a long meeting we had tonight, a very productive meeting. I want to thank you all, and be safe, stay safe, and have a good rest of the week. Take care. This meeting is adjourned.
Bye.
Bye.